Hey, it's Sarah from Hot on the Street. I'm here with Ron Tite. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'm neither hot nor on the street, but this is going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. We actually have an interesting connection because I started my marketing career at 219 Dufferin and I was an intern at Matchstick. That's how I got started, and that's where your office is.
No way. Well, you know what's crazy? I was across the hall from Matchstick, um, like 12 years ago, I think, or 11 years ago. Yeah, those guys are great, and they ended up kind of selling to Argyle, I think, and yeah, really, really nice guys. I really like them.
Yeah, they were great. Those were the good old days when we still called them blogger outreach campaigns. I miss it.
What do we call them now?
Influencers, but I still identify as a blogger.
Well, influencer or creators, there's a whole bunch of different terms, I think, for them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know that you travel quite a bit, so I'm glad that we can sit down and talk about your new book, The Purpose of Purpose. One thing that really impresses me when I do these podcast interviews is that no one knows what I'm about to ask them, but everyone speaks really well. How has your background in improv helped you in the corporate world?
I think I think there's a couple of things. One, that improv and I was more of a stand-up than an improviser, but I got my training at Second City. I think improv is like the piano of comedy. You know, like most musicians, regardless of the instrument you play, everybody kind of knows how to play piano, and it's kind of the base foundation. So I think improv is the same. So I wasn't a great piano player or improviser. I kind of took that into stand up. But I think there's a couple of things there. One is more, life philosophy of just that, you don't have to have everything completely scripted when you go live. That you can have an inkling of where you want to go, and then you can adapt and pivot and change, on the fly, all depending on the inputs or the reactions to the world around you. So you don't have to have everything perfect. The second thing is that when you collaborate with somebody on stage, and this was kind of the difference between stand up and improv and sketch. I was in a sketch troupe called Nairobi After Five. And, when you have stand up, you don't have to worry about anybody else. And so you can go up, you can do whatever you want, you can go off in a different direction. You don't have to worry about that impacting other people. And that's kind of an entrepreneurial approach, right? I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make it happen. Um, Improv and sketch, though, like you can't do that. That you need to kind of consider the other people who are on stage with you. And they may actually have an idea that makes your idea better. They may challenge you, they may compliment you, but it really that is about not about you and it's not about them, it's about the scene. Very much like inside organizations, it's not about you or it's not about your colleagues, it's about the organization or it's about the project or it's about the initiative. And just got to find your way in that. So stand up is in one sense faster and easier because you don't have to consider other people to do what you want. And improv and sketch is more difficult because you're working with other people, and the work takes on a different flavor to it. So I think that it's having all those skills from the stage really, really helps, and it's helped me, read a room. That if you're doing a presentation, you can just pick up on like, this isn't flying. They're not buying it, and I'm gonna change on the fly, so that they're a little more engaged in what I'm selling.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask you about stand-up comedians. Do you think that comedians can become effective corporate speakers even if they've never had a 9 to 5 job?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of effective is. I think to be, they can be very good and they can be popular and they can make a lot of money. I think my definition of effective is that you're entertaining enough, that you're insightful enough, and you're engaging enough. And to have real insight into an organization, I think you either have to do a heck of a lot of homework or, so I think to be effective as a speaker, you really need to be entertaining enough, you need to be insightful enough, and you need to be relevant enough. And to kind of to be insightful and to be relevant, like you really kind of got to know what people are going through. And so sometimes that fresh perspective without having corporate experience is really fresh. And it's what people need to hear and see. They need to see and be inspired by somebody who isn't in their industry and they completely provide an outsider's perspective on it. And other times, I think they do need to see it. So it really depends on the person. There's no difference between a comedian and an Olympic athlete or a professional athlete, who a professional athlete who has spent no time in a traditional organization can build a great metaphor for you of like this is what it's like in the change room, and you can kind of extrapolate from that how that translates and how that impacts the boardroom. They don't need to do it for you, but I think they can be a more effective if they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was interesting what you said about athletes because technically you could bring in anyone from a different non-corporate background to speak to your team. So I think that was really interesting.
I kind of found, because I played in both areas, right? I never really wanted to exclusively hang out with comedians. I found that really depressing, and I never really wanted to exclusively hang out with ad people either, because I found that very depressing. And so I could bring both of those kind of pieces to the stage as a speaker, where there are times where my comedy helped me really, really well, and there are times where my corporate experience helped me really well. But it's really a combination of the two that makes it really powerful, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I really like how you said that you sort of treat LinkedIn like your own open mic, and it gives you a chance to test ideas. And you made a really unique statement. You said that your audience is kind of like co-author of this book. How can other leaders or businesses collaborate with their audience to make better products and services and lean into their purpose?
Well, that we've gone through a period of the last little while where, on one hand, we've kind of celebrated user-generated content, and we've gone to creators to create content on behalf of brands, and we've kind of had this like, well, the consumer's experience in social it's their brand, it's not your brand, and I would say to that like. No, it's not. It's your brand. Take it back. Like get out there and take it back. So on one hand, you know, yes, we need to go and hear from our audience, and we need to consult with our audience. But that doesn't mean we hand over the keys. That doesn't mean we go, well, it's your brand. It's like, no, it's not. You control everything about your brand, whether you're a leader, whether you're a brand leader for an organization. Um, so keep the keys to yourself. The second thing is that why I said that was because I'll share thoughts, and I don't share the thoughts on LinkedIn to say like this is final, this is what I firmly believe. But it is an open mic night. It's like this is what kind of where my brain goes with this, and sometimes I'm more firm in what I believe than others. But you know what typically happens is people go like, no, I'm calling BS on that. And I'll either double down and go, no, in my experience, I'm going to stand by what I said, or, huh, interesting. I did not think of that perspective, or I've never had that experience. And so just mere comments from people add like just this great kind of perspective on my thinking. And it allowed me to you just get smarter and smarter and smarter. And so the way I typically do it is I'll read an article and I think like, here's my take on this article. And then I kind of create a slide in the moment. I create a slide in the moment, and I pull that slide over to a bucket, my leadership bucket or my authenticity bucket. I force myself to use that slide in the next speech. And then from the stage, I'll have a feeling of like, does this work? Is this something? And then combined with how I read the room and comments on LinkedIn, I kind of come to a better place with my thought, whatever the thing is. And when I combine those two, then I start to write that and bring it over into Scrivener, which is where I write the books. So I'm always working on the next speech. I'm always working on the next book. But there's the kind of the insights and the feedback from everybody is kind of deeply embedded in there.
It's really interesting how you're able to combine the feedback, not just from your LinkedIn social media audience, but also from your public speaking. So that's definitely an advantage that you have.
I can tell whether it works or not. Like just I'll do it 2 minutes, and sometimes I can hear it, a pin drop, and I think like, ooh, they like that. I got to turn that two into a five, and so I'll do that the next time. I'll go like, oh, maybe I'll explore that a little bit more. Is there some more meaning there? And then the five becomes a 10, and then the eight becomes or the 10 becomes an eight becomes more efficient. Like I'm always kind of playing with it.
Well, one of the things that stood out to me in your book was how you talked about Barbie. Can you expand on why that's a brand that you admire and how they understand their purpose?
Yeah, Barbie to me, it's interesting because I come at it with no personal attachment to the brand. Like I didn't grow up, I was born in 1970, so it that was when kind of the gender definitions and which is like little boys you weren't really allowed to play with Barbies. And so thankfully that's changed. But I didn't grow up with Barbies or kind of trying to see my life through the dolls, which I know many young girls did. So it was a completely different perspective on it. And I hadn't really thought about the brand until the movie came out. And I'll never forget, like I had COVID and I thought, like, I don't want to watch this movie. I thought, like, there's no way I want to watch this movie. And I had COVID and I thought, okay, I'm lying in bed. I'll watch this Barbie because everybody started to talk about Barbie. And, and then I thought of my mom and, the lyrics of Billie Eilish's song it just really resonated with me because I just thought, man, like, what was I made for? Here, my mom was a single mom for many years. She was, disabled, raised four kids on social assistance, like, and probably didn't get the life that she had planned, or certainly the life that she deserved. And, we spend a lot of time now on International Women's Day and kind of celebrating the accomplishments of amazing women, which we should, of course, that's long overdue. So, during International Women's Day, we spent a lot of time celebrating the huge accomplishments of women, as we should. But we also, I think, fail to recognize that there were women who, during a time or because of circumstances, that they didn't have those choices. And my mom was certainly that person. And I think gender equality, while nowhere near where it should be, wouldn't have kind of progressed without people like my mom who did what they had to do. And so for some reason that really kind of resonated with me and kind of forced me into looking at the brand more. And so what I love about the brand is that they believe in something more. They believe in something that goes beyond the product itself. They go from product to purpose. And they believe in kind of the importance of empowering women and certainly young girls. And it's not just the doll, but there are a number of initiatives, including the movie, I think that inspire and inform young women on kind of a future and a trajectory that they may not have considered before. So it's really, understanding that they need to believe in something more, but that's not enough. That they can't just go like, oh, women are amazing and women can be anything, and then they don't do anything to reinforce it beyond the product. But there's so much that brand does and that Mattel does for the brand to bring that purpose to life.
I love that. It's interesting how you kind of had that outsider approach, but you learn more about the brand. And it's been great for me because I did grow up playing with Barbie and to see the evolution of the brand and what they're doing now that inspired me to start a new collection as an adult. So I definitely love Barbie.
Did you like the movie?
I actually haven't seen it, which I think would surprise a lot of people.
You got to see it. Do you like the song? Do you like the Billie Eilish song?
I like I think it's Dua Lipa. She has Dance the Night Away.
Yeah.
Um I used to sell or promote the virtual dolls in the Kim Kardashian game, so that became my own sort of attachment to dolls in the last few years. And so I've sort of been hesitant to see it, but I definitely will.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice.
If you could work with any brand or any celebrity to establish and implement their purpose, what would be your dream client?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, I don't. I'll say I won't answer it. And not because I think because it's a difficult question. I think it's really interesting. Like the most interesting or intriguing brands that I've really kind of dug into and done a lot of work for were the ones that I wouldn't have expected. Like you think like, oh, I want to work with like a huge environmental organization, which we are right now, and or I want to work with a great brand like Google, which we are, and they're amazing. So from startups to a big global enterprise, I've worked with them all, and it's just the ones that you don't expect, where you think like, oh wow, these people really care about this. This is really interesting, and I didn't think I would have enjoyed this brand, but it's way more intriguing, or it's way more important, or it's way more engaging. So I guess the one would want to work to is just whatever the next one is going to be. I learned so much from we just started working with Cost, which is a not-for-profit organization out of Calgary. And what they do is they teach people to use this very specific filter so that third world communities can have clean drinking water. What? There's an organization that does that, and they don't just like sell it through, but actually teach people to teach. They don't just go in and implement in the community, but they actually teach people how to do it. It's just wonderful. It's just an incredible organization. I'm really fortunate to work with them.
That's great. And I know you already have a ton of high profile clients. You're an agency owner, you're a dad, you're a speaker, and you still manage to see a few baseball games when you're in Toronto. You also mentioned going to the cottage. How do you manage to do it all? And what does your schedule look like?
Well, certainly, I certainly don't do it all. There's a whack of people who are involved, and on a couple of fronts. Certainly on the speaking side, Speaker Spotlight is the bureau that I work with, so they take care of so much, and they're amazing people to work with. At the agency at Church and State, my business partner Robin Whaling, and Whalen is an incredible human being, and she runs that business on a day-to-day basis. And I do a lot of strategy work. But the strategy work is the type of work that allows me to kind of do it at my own pace and my own schedule. And like Robin's the one who's in the thick of it in the kind of day to day. And I think, and then I also have somebody, Tia Martin, who works with me on the kind of the we're developing a course right now, which will come out in the fall. Um, so I think it's really just a knowledge and an awareness of where I'm best. And there are so many areas that I'm not good at. And I don't try and, convince myself that I could be, or I know where I need help and where I need to really turn that over to other people. I focus on what I'm good at. In terms of a schedule, during the summertime, like if I'm in town working, I'm here. I have a desk in the basement of my house. I don't work upstairs near the fridge. No, I have an office in the basement. I come down at 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't go up until 5. I have a washroom down here. I have everything I need. So I work out of here. When I go into the office at Church and State, I do the exact same thing. So really committed to office hours. And when I'm on the road, I just crank on so much, on flights and in hotel rooms. Some people like they go and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna take a vacation." No, I'm working. If I'm speaking somewhere, I'm working. I'm not on vacation, so I don't extend the trip. I don't spend a extra couple of days in San Diego. I'm working, and if I'm working, you know what? I'm doing calls in the hotel. I'm doing meetings in the hotel room before I go and speak. So it's just being really protective. When I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation, and when I'm working, I'm working, and I try not to have the worlds kind of bleed into one another.
I think that's a really great approach. It sort of explains how you're really focused on whatever you're doing, which I agree with. And I wanted to share a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you are asked to be an advisor to a politician, and they also have a jam-packed schedule, and they're invited to nonstop events. Everyone wants to see them. They want to make the voters happy. They want to show up in the right places, and they want to make a difference in their community. How would you help them decide what's worth their time?
Well, I think I wouldn't help them decide. I would help them establish priorities that connect to their personal purpose, their personal needs and goals, and to remind them, like, hey, you said like this was really important. You said family time was really important. Like you told me it was number one on your list. And so, we have to ensure that, when we look back at the past week, that you didn't spend time with the family. And so, not every, you don't need 20% of every day. It's not that simple, but we do have to establish priorities. We do need to establish activities and behaviors, and then look to see where those align. So those priorities can be based on personal interest or goals. Those can relate to business goals. So if it's a politician, like, hey, you know what? The blue collar crowd in Saskatchewan is really important, and so we need to ensure that we spend 20% of our time in that. And if it's over a month, then let's we have not met that, or let's proactively ensure that we schedule that amount of time in, because you've stated that that's important, or your strategy has stated that reaching that demographic or that group of people is really important. So I think where people get it wrong is they try and make these gut decisions in the moment. Should I go here? Should I go there? That's already been answered for you. It's been answered for you already with the purpose that you've stated, and with the priorities that you've articulated. So if you do the upfront heavy work, that is what answers where you spend your time over the long haul. And interestingly, I did write a spot for one of the politicians in the last federal election, that was really enjoyable, and I had never been involved creatively with a politician, but it was a really interesting creative process that I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And I'd say, like, I agree with what you said about prioritizing for sure. And another thing I would say is not only deciding where to go, but knowing when to leave would be really key in that world.
Yeah, yeah, and that can be your own person. Like, hey, you got a big day tomorrow. Like, you need to be in bed at 10 o'clock. You know that. So if you're not going to be in bed at 10 o'clock, then how's it impacting tomorrow? And what changes are you going to make because you've made that change? And Yeah, but that's a great point. Yeah, it's not about just knowing when to show up, but it's also knowing when to leave.
100%. Well, now it's time for a little speed round and a game that I want to call What's the Purpose with Ron Tite?
Should we cue the theme song? Should I take a swig of Diet Coke? Should I do that now?
Sure, go for it. So I'm going to name some hot topics and then you can tell us what the purpose is. Are you ready?
Okay, perfect. Let's go.
What is the purpose of wearing a suit with sneakers?
I think it's to comfort on stage, or to communicate a level of authenticity that typically doesn't come from somebody in a suit.
What's the purpose of agency marketing?
The purpose of agency marketing is to protect clients from themselves. You can build an internal audience that has the same skills as any agency, but an outside agency brings cross industry experience. So they have clients who are doing other things in other industries. And so you have that perspective that you can apply to your client that they could never get from an internal team. But you also, as an outsider, you protect them from themselves. There are too many people inside organizations who kind of drink the Kool-Aid, and an agency can tell you, like, you know what? The average consumer, they do not care about that.
I guess I meant to say more about agency marketing or like employer branding in terms of promoting the agency itself. And how do you know if that's working?
Oh, yeah. So the purpose of agency marketing, self-promotion, is twofold. One, it's a path to new business, and there are a million different ways of doing that. But clients become aware of your expertise and your areas of specialty. But then the other thing is for recruiting of great people. That great people want to go to places that are known, and so if you want great people in your on your team, then they need to know about you.
Speaking of which, what is the purpose of internal communications?
The purpose of internal comms, and we do a lot of work in this area, um, is to ensure that every single person in the organization can align their personal activities with the strategic goals of the organization and the purpose of the organization. So, we see it a lot when there's like M&A activity, like there's been a merger, there's been an acquisition, and suddenly now there's a new CEO, and suddenly the organization has new priorities. Well, in order for those to work, for you to fully realize them, every single person in the organization needs to go, oh, I know what this place stands for. And not only that, I know that I have a very specific, valued role in bringing it to life. I know what to do on a daily basis to reinforce the purpose of the organization. Way too many, SLT, senior leadership teams or C-suites will kind of go away. They'll do a strategy at some resort north of the city, wherever their organization is. And they go, we're going to do all these things. And then they just bark it at people, or they send a deck around or an email or something. And they don't have no idea. They don't understand it. Or worse, they just don't know what to personally do to help make it happen.
And what's the purpose of a verified checkmark on social media?
Well, more and more, and I'm trying to think, do I have them? I don't even know maybe I have them in some and maybe not in others. I think and hope that in a world where, where we're being impersonated, and people are ripping off, our usernames and domains and everything else. That what that blue check does is like reinforce and confirm that this is the person who you think it is.
And finally, what is the purpose of a strategic silence or a pregnant pause?
The well, there's a couple of different things that can happen there, and I'm a big believer in them. The use of silence, I think, is the most powerful part of communication, and it's a strategically well placed moment of silence. So sometimes, if it's following a joke, you want the silence for the punchline to sink in a little bit. You want the crowd to hear the laughter that they're surrounded by. You want them to be in the moment. And so if it's the moment, it's their moment where they're responding in a certain way. You want them to appreciate it. It's kind of like, in sports, if somebody hits a home run, you want the announcer to shut up. So you can just take it all in on your own. So you can do that. The other reason why a beat of silence can work is it makes people it forces them to stop and think about what you've said. They're not thinking about where you're going with it. You need them to stop and think about what you've just said, before you introduce something new. The other thing it does is it focuses a room. So jokes can get people to like talk to their neighbor, like, oh, that was great. Remember that time? Like, that's like you, Sally. But when you follow that up with silence, and especially if you let it hang for a bit and you wait and you wait, it refocuses everybody back to the stage. And it gets them back to listening to what you want them to listen to, which is your next instruction, your next insight, your next joke, whatever it is. So there's a number of uses for them, and I use it a lot.
I love what you said about the silences and how it kind of tied back not only to sports. I thought that was interesting, but also just focusing. And I think that's so important. And that's what I really love about live events in general. And, there's a big difference between watching a stand up comic at Massey Hall versus watching them on Netflix. It's a totally different experience.
Yeah, totally. Like you just take it all in and you enjoy other people's reaction as much as your own.
Definitely. Well, this has been a lot of fun. That wraps up our game of What's the Purpose with Ron Tite, and I really enjoyed it.
That's a great game. I should let's make a board game. Let's go to Mattel and we'll make a board game. What's the purpose with Ron and Sarah?
I'm on board. Let's go tomorrow.
It's kind of like the stand up like what's the deal with, but like what's the purpose of Velcro? I don't know. It's like it can just start up every stand up bit. What's the purpose of this thing anyhow?
Yeah, it seemed so obvious to me when I saw the title of your book, and I picked my top five questions based on the time.
Oh,
Well,
that's
thank
awesome.
you so much. This has been so much fun, and I hope that the audience has taken away a lot from this conversation. And your book is on sale now, and I really appreciate having this conversation today.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me. And to everybody out there, thank you for watching and listening.
Thank you so much. Stay tuned for more interviews on Hot on the Street.